Second question, do you feel that the state of Arizona adequately funds public education? Explain your opinion. And we'll start this with Mr. Lamerson.
Education in Arizona is largely regulated at the state level base. We have what we call equalization formula. The state basically tells us how much money we're going to get for students based on the number of students we have. So they basically control the amount of money we have. Getting back to it, funding is based on the number of students. So as we see, we have a decline, and we continue to have the decline. And in this case, with the 2 million backs up against the wall, we got nowhere to go. And it should have been addressed a long time ago. The one thing I'm pointing out is we can make some decisions on how the money's spent, but not many decisions on how the funding is obtained, because the state puts it all together for us. In this fiscal year, better than 50% of our budget went to education in the state of Arizona. 43% went to K through 12. All the districts are suffering our problem. I don't know of any districts I've read about, and I've read tons of them, and they're all having budget issues. Prescott isn't going to come out of this unique in getting more money from the state, because the state's not going to give it to us. So don't bank on funding, more funding coming from the state to run the schools. Prop 301 is a bright spot, which I support. We should get every dime that the voters passed back in 2000. We've been so shortchanged by the legislature that it's not very good. We should push everybody in the legislature to cough up that money. That leaves us that local solutions are required. So we're going to have to come up with some hard decisions, but it's going to require a lot of people putting in input. The bottom line, though, is we have to fund the classrooms first. The money has to go in to education, learning in the classroom, academics. That's what attracts other people to other schools that are leaving us, is high academics. Thank you.
To walk out and be closer to people. It makes me nervous being behind the barrier. Is the state of Arizona, and I'm looking at our individuals running for the legislature here, is the state of Arizona funding us well enough? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Since 2009, and here I will rely on my notes, 2009 to 2014, our building renewal fund has been cut by over $12 million. Not good. We received an F in school funding from the Arizona School Boards Association. Our average per pupil spending in Arizona was $7,559. The average in the U.S. is $10,608. When you add in all other revenue sources, the average in Arizona is $8,347. We're much lower here in Prescott. The average in the U.S. is $12,000 plus. The average salary here in Prescott is in the mid-30s. The average salary across the U.S. is in the mid-40s. It is difficult to attract and retain people. Prescott is I forgot we only have 2 minutes, right? I have to talk faster. Prescott is a beautiful area, but we want to keep people in Prescott. Our administrative costs here in Prescott are 55% below the national average. Arizona is in the bottom 10 for funding, and it's in the bottom 10 for NAEP scores. And NAEP is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Money does make a difference. It does make a difference. Oh, I have 15 more seconds. When I looked at the PISA scores, and that's the Program for International Student Progress, when you look at the U.S. compared to other countries, If you have a poverty rate and funding rate, 15 more seconds, okay, funding rate between 0 to 10%, we are number one. We're ahead of Finland, we're ahead of Sweden, we're ahead of Switzerland, we're ahead of these other homogeneous countries that have good funding. We are ahead. So it's not a matter of curriculum. Stop talking. The sign says it's not a matter of curriculum, it's a matter of funding.
I couldn't disagree more. It is simply a myth that student achievement is highly correlated with spending. Arizona does rank low in spending. The cost of living in Arizona is lower. We're comparing, these studies compare Arizona with jurisdictions like New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, big urban districts where salaries are much higher, and salaries are about 80–85% of the cost of running your school. But let me say that I don't know anybody in Arizona public life who says that we are funding our schools adequately. We probably aren't. We do rank very, very low. I think somewhere between 46th and 49th place in the studies that I've seen. And that's probably not a good thing. But help is on the way, because for the last 2 years, having nothing to do with the court case, for the last 2 years, the Arizona legislature has put in additional funding for education. We went through a terrible recession. Funding was cut about 19%. But after that 2000, I believe it was 2000, the initiative, the voter initiative to fund education, keeping up with inflation, the Arizona state legislature actually added much more than the law required them to do. So when they started cutting with the Great Recession, they were cutting from a higher base level. The United States, for many, many years, has been the top spender in education internationally. But our student achievement scores, and I don't know where Ms. Erickson gets these numbers, our schools Poland has better schools than we do. Russia has better schools than we do. The United States is a top spender, but not in achievement. Here in Arizona, $7,500 average per capita or student. Here in Prescott, Arizona, it's $6,500, but we have better schools than the state average. All of our schools are A's and B's with one exception. So it's not money alone.
Well, I would first say that the education that my kids receive is amazing, and I commend our educators, our teachers, our administrators for what you do, for what you're given. Thank you. It's an amazing thing, and I have 2 kids that have gone on to college and to careers, and I appreciate the education you've given my children and are giving the kids that I have in the school district right now, given the shortness of funds. So I think you're amazing at what you do in terms of stretching dollars. I would agree with Mr. Lamerson that the Proposition 301 money needs to be given to our schools. It was voter approved, and if I didn't pay my taxes, I'm sure somebody would be knocking on my door, asking me where it's at. So I think that we need to make sure we press our legislators to make sure that that money does get to our school districts. I agree with Dr. Erickson that without having the building renewal fund and the soft capital money that has been pulled back from our school districts, that's why we're standing here answering this question. And so I've looked at a lot of different studies out there in regard to performance, academic performance, and test scores compared to per pupil spending. And there is not a very strong correlation, but I do believe there is a correlation that when you do spend more money, you do see test scores go up. And I would just like to not be at the bottom. I would like to be 40th or something better than 46th. So, I guess that's my competitive spirit, and I just want to be better than the bottom. And so I do believe that if we would raise our funding levels in our schools, that we would see test scores go up. And understand as well, we're looking at a lot of buildings around our district that are 100+ years old. If you've walked through some of these schools, I would challenge you to walk over here to this girls' locker room under this gymnasium, and you would be amazed at what you would see. You would not want your kids in there the way it is today. And so I'm telling you that environment is important as well, that we have got to raise the bar with spending in our school district.